Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, I've got a question for everybody listening, no matter where you're listening in the world. How many of you this year have had food delivered? And was it delivered from Uber Eats, Deliveroo, Just Eat, or any of the usual suspects? And if you did, what was the variety like? Because it seems to me that sometimes you have nothing to choose but the same big corporations such as McDonald's, Burger King, Papa John's, KFC. All the food is very samey. It will make you fat and make the rich even richer. But what about the local independent chefs? And on those same apps, if you look at the lower end of the market, it might be great when you want a dirty burger or just some good old-fashioned comfort food. But what if you consider yourself a foodie? What if you find yourself looking at Instagram and scrolling down the food porn hashtag, scrolling down those tasty dishes, thinking, actually, I want to eat something like this. But you can never find anything like that, right? Well, today's guests have had that exact same experience. But they decided to do something about it. So they used technology to support and help grow small businesses, street food markets, independent chefs and restaurants by offering something different. And they've also thrown in a social element and creating food communities from this. It is a very heartwarming story. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to London. Because today we're going to speak to a father and son team who are bringing something called Propagrub to life. So let's get them on the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, guys. Can you tell the listeners a little about your journey, how you got here, and ultimately your origin story?
Sure. Well, I'm Brandon. We are father and son. And, my journey started about 28 years ago. I did a degree in surveying, actually, and I was working on my father's market stall in Stevenage. And I wanted to get out the markets and get an education. And sadly, he passed away and we had to close the market, but I got my degree and started with a company that was sort of the largest leisure agency of the time. I mean, I'm going back to 1994 when leisure and restaurants was pretty much a dirty word in investment terms. No one wanted these stinky things. And I started this company and was handed Cafe Rouge. And they had a couple of little sites at the time, and I was told to get off my backside and go and find them as many sites as I could around the UK. At that time, we didn't have computers on our desks. I think we just about had mobile phones, and definitely not satellite navigation. So with a map in hand, an A to Z on my lap, going down the motorway, petrified. Yeah, hadn't really been outside London before, never mind about Nottingham and Durham's and the places like that. And I proceeded to expand Cafe Rouge to 150 units in about 3 years.
Wow.
But from that led to Pizza Express, to other groups that were growing at the time, Wetherspoons. And I found myself, completely submerged in restaurants and leisure and clients seeking to expand. It was the thing then to expand. That's been my career, well, for 28 years now. So I still grow many groups from at the embryonic levels. They come to me with one or two sites and I build them up or sell them when they don't work.
Yeah, I'm Jacob. I've previously founded some tech businesses within fashion and music, one which actually sold. And I think, we came together on this project because we both live to eat rather than eat to live, as we say. And, food delivery became something common in our lives, and watching new restaurants and independent people selling food online over many different social media platforms. And I think with research, it struck us that food delivery today is, a 13.3 billion pound market and growing year on year. And we saw this as an opportunity to create a disruptive product within the food market with an emotional and social aspect, because that's what we believe food is about.
Yeah, I mean, I just to add in there, we've gone from the nuclear family restaurants and people's changing dining habits, all moving on to a generation of what they call "I want what I want and when I want it." So really, delivery, which is what we're going to be talking about, is the new drive-through, and we just massive foodies at heart, completely, always have been.
And it was that path that led you to Propagrub. And I'm conscious we will have people listening all over the world. So on behalf of everyone listening that are hearing about it for the first time, what is Propagrub? What approach have you taken here?
Well, just to go back to the path, we were caught up in the lockdown as everyone else was. And a lot of my clients and people that I'd grown over the years and independents were losing their businesses, chefs who made redundant. And Jacob actually noticed that there was all these illegal chefs. We call them illegal because they don't have hygiene ratings or anything like that, but they were selling food from home through various different platforms, Instagram, TikTok. And then on the flip side, I had people saying, I've lost my shop, or can you sell my restaurant? And I'm in terrible trouble. How can you help us? But again, at that same time, there was this, these delivery companies, mainly Deliveroo, that were just swooping up the market. It just occurred to me that there's all these wonderful new chefs, these potential Jamie Olivers and new Nigellas sitting at home, and some of their food is pretty amazing, and they've got dishes that are handed down through their generations and recipes. And I said to Jacob, couldn't you build a platform that could accommodate that and get people back into the kitchen, back working again? And that's really where it sort of stemmed from.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we want to become the dedicated platform for all things dedicated to food, and the ultimate hangout space for lovers of all things to do with food, and a place for people to connect and discover a network of communities. If people have interests that are sort of mainstream or niche, we want people to share and discover something new on our app.
With Propagrub, what makes it different from other food delivery apps, such as those you mentioned now, Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo? Is it the quality food and going after foodies and real chefs? Is that the main differentiator here?
Well, first of all, it occurred to us that when we ordered, I'm going to say Nando's, several months ago, and through one of the platforms, and it cost us around 30 quid. And I said, this is ridiculous. How did this happen? And we tested it, went into the restaurant the next day and had exactly the same dishes for £20. And then it occurred to us, and after I spoke to various amount of my clients, I said, well, the platforms, they're charging us between 30 and sometimes up to 50%, which goes on to the consumer because they beef their prices up to accommodate those charges. Now, I remember a time when you could get a pizza and it was all free and you'd give the delivery boy £1, but suddenly the consumer is paying for being lazy, for their own self-gratification. That's what this whole industry is about, is self-gratification.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, we don't just want to be another standard food delivery platform. We believe that food is about emotion, and sharing food photos can be a visual pull that can, subconsciously alert people to check out, if it's new restaurants or new foods. And I think we really want to emphasize that social aspect of food on our platform.
Yeah, we got the social aspects of it now. We want a platform that you don't just go to when you're hungry. Yeah. This is a place that you dwell in, and what I call, through Instagram in 2010, the food porn.
Yeah,
and people oogling over pictures, and food has become a message bearer that expresses, our own personalities and values and choices. And Instagram changed that, actually, the way that we look at food, and people want to know what the restaurant was like and who were you with, and and also what you're eating, and can it get you additional followers from like-minded communities and people. So, we're not only about charging less and doing a good job of delivering. We are hoping that the independent restaurants give that back to their customers, in terms of value. and they can now start rediscounting instead of putting the prices up again. Yeah.
And if we have any chefs or local independent restaurants listening to this podcast today, what would you say to them, or a reason for them to join this new revolution in food delivery marketplace by not just focusing on the cheap takeout, but for people that genuinely love food? How would you get them on board, or how are you getting them on board?
Well, first of all, we're creating a home for startups and people who love cooking. Okay, so they don't need to create and build their own websites. This is all under one roof. We give them a chef's portal. They put on their menus. They can change their menus. They can put in promotions and whatever. And, you know, we're hoping that we can start. I mean, we've got some chefs that we're talking to. I mean, their dream is to get on the high street. So we're taking these people from digital to physical.
Yeah.
And that is a dream. We're getting the retail shops, you know, let again on the high street, because it's like, you know, a ghost town at the moment. And we've also got a section where we're doing property as well, restaurant property. So people can come out of their homes again and find temporary accommodation or dark kitchens, which seems to be the big thing at the moment.
And as this is a tech podcast, I've got to ask, can you tell me more about how you're using technology at the heart of all this to support and help these, help grow small businesses? And not only that, really, it's street food markets and independent restaurants too. What role is technology in all this for you guys?
Sure. So we've built a iOS and Android application totally from scratch. And what a chef or restaurant can do is they can log in with their own portal. And we've built certain features within this where they can have access to their followers. They can ping their followers if they have a new dish, for example. We have private, direct chats from the customers to the chef. And we've really looked at sort of trends and tried to add things which restaurants would use and it would really benefit them.
So for anyone listening that's just downloaded the app, which is Propagrub, they've downloaded it from iOS or Android, can you just walk them through what to expect, the app design, how to get the most out of it, and that social aspect of it?
Yeah, so we've got the delivery side, as we discussed before, but it's so much more than that. It's more of a community. So when you go into the app, you'll be able to see communities area, and it's a little bit like Reddit meets Instagram. You can upload your pictures and your photos. Again, I mean, this was, to quickly go back a little bit, it was born out of the fact that I've sat in restaurants, I'm sure we've all been guilty of this, watching people taking pictures of their food. And I said to Jacob, where do these pictures go? Yeah. Everyone's taking pictures of their food. Okay. So we built the community side so people can talk about food. They can have their own different discussions and chats. They can even chat to the restaurant itself and the restaurant owner. They can say, I love that sauce and what was in it. But just going back to the community part, we realized quickly that people like doing thumbs up, and I love that. And we built in a rewards feature. So you can actually send your friends rewards and pictures of things and say, yeah, thumbs up again, and all different badges. Then we've taken it one step further. And we brought in our partners, our restaurant partners, who are doing the delivery. But not only the ones that we've got groups of restaurants and people that every time you mention their restaurant, so you take a picture of the food in the restaurant, and you mention at so and so restaurant, that will be notified to that restaurant, and that owner of that restaurant can then say, great, they've done a lovely bit of feedback. They've given us a bit of free promotion, and what a great picture of a steak. I'm going to give them 10% off, and he can reward them. So the restaurant partners have got that actually their own rewards. They can give free drinks, free meal for two, whatever or just a thumbs up. Thank you for that, and then it's a sort of an instant gratification that you've taken a picture and you've been noticed, properly. And the restaurant gives it its recognition. So we've got all of that side of it. We've got our own internal chat as well. So again, it's almost like a WhatsApp. So people can talk about food and find friends within their own encrypted WhatsApp. It's not WhatsApp, it's our own encrypted chat. And then we've got another section. Again, it's a little bit like TikTok. So we've got a sort of clips. so people can send in live clips, live stream, and it's everything about food. We just, it's all about food. And it's one home just for that. And it's all quite self-explanatory when you go on the app.
It's incredibly cool. So that's the consumer side, the side of things. But for the restaurants and the chefs, etc., do they log into the same app as a partner, or is it something else? Or do they have to go on the web, or how does that work for those?
Yeah, they have their own chef's portal app. And so they'll be verified, of course. So you'll know who is a real restaurant on the site. So we give them a chef's portal. It's very similar to the Deliveroo sign up. We've kept it very, very slick. And we looked at all the chef's portals out there. If you haven't used one before, they can be a nightmare. But, we've mastered a really cool chef's portal. So we put their menus up there first, and they can then, we hand it over, and then they can move their pictures around, do promotions, say we're only open these days a week, or do different things. So the chefs get a lovely little home where they can, literally display on Propagrub food like you would for Deliveroo or Just Eat or Uber Eats. It's very, very simple and straightforward. And the difference with us is we're bright pink, so people won't miss us. So we've got electric vehicles come in as well, just for the ethical side of things. And also we will be doing a JV with youth organisations to give them bikes. Literally, they'll be paying off the bikes through delivering, and then they can have their own ownership. So we'll be teaming up with people like that shortly. So You'll see a lot of pink bags.
And I love what you're doing there. And as this is a tech podcast, I love how you're leveraging technology to bring people together. I absolutely love that, and especially people that love food. But what really stood out for me is also how you're building chef and food communities almost around London. Can you expand on that and where you see that leading?
Originally, as I said at the beginning, the idea came from wanting to put people back in the kitchen and getting these unknown mums and dads and kids who can create amazing foods and dishes. But at the moment, some of them are doing it illegally, but very, very successfully. And I say illegally again, because if you order food from a TikTok thing and you food poison someone, that's a criminal offence, and a lot of people, I don't think, realize it. And so I said to Jacob, I want, Mrs. Smith to be the next Jamie Oliver. How do we do this? So we we've got food rankings, coming up. So you'll be able to see that person, I call it like top of the pops. If you remember in the old days, you had the top 10 charts of who's in the area, who's selling the most food and who's the best. And you might find that Mrs. Smith can't give you a dish for another 3 weeks because she's so popular. So we're trying to bring those people up and through the ranks. But the problem is the draconian attitudes of the government and health and hygiene. They've got a backlog of over 6 months to come in and say, yes, your house is fine to sell foods. And that's a problem. So we are starting by independent street food traders and people that have got restaurant licenses and already the health and hygiene standards. And then we will be handpicking top people that we just new food discoveries. And I think Jacob found someone who was selling insects the other day, but as food, not as pets. Because there's a whole depth of new and ingenious foods that are coming out into the market now, and it's all about food discovery. I mean, if you look at Deliveroo and Just Eat, all they do is they give you adverts about McDonald's and KFC, and all they're doing is the behemoths are getting richer, and they're getting richer, and we're getting fatter, and there's nothing about food discovery. About new people, and then some amazing concepts out there, in chains that I'm expanding now, and all we get handed is KFC, and great. I love a KFC, but there's so many things that are so much better than them that people don't know about.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I opened Deliveroo only last weekend, fancied something to eat, and as you said, it was those 4 or 5 big names that we all know, and you think, I want something different to that, and it can be challenging finding something that you really fancy, can't you? And anything you'd like to add to that, Jacob?
Well, Jacob, I was just going to say, Jacob, you should mention the DNA.
Yeah, I mean, so we've also patented a DNA feature, and we see this as a stage 2 within the app. And the way it will work is that it actually has 3 components. So the first being a food profiling system. So everyone that signs up to Propagrub, we're gonna send them a almost like a questionnaire where they can pick, foods they like, food they don't like, and what that system will do is it will create a profile for them. And that's the first stage of the DNA taste, as we're calling it. The second stage is that we're actually going to send customers, and obviously this is optional, a DNA test kit. And what they can do with that DNA test kit is they obviously swipe the inside of their mouth, or as an area where we can get some data, and that gets sent back to a lab. And what the lab does is it tells you your ancestor or ancestral history. And what we then do is we pair that with our already recommendation, the recommendation system which we have. And that gives us an idea of foods that they don't like, but they should like based on their DNA and heritage.
Wow, incredibly cool. And where do you take it from here? Where's Propagrub going to be in the future? Is there anything you can share about the timeline that you guys have got in your head for the rest of the year and beyond?
Well, we are focusing at the moment on doing these rewards with the partner program. So people, so when it's released onto the App Store, you automatically start be able to take pictures and receiving rewards from partners and friends. The delivery side, we're onboarding people now. The problem I found is all of these delivery companies push people into exclusivity positions. So we've really got to push ourselves to prove that we can deliver and deliver well and cheaply and still make it effective, a sustainable option for the restaurants. We've got a crypto coin coming out, which we're working on now, which is our own Propagrub food coin, and people will be able to pay with that and receive rewards with that. We've got a market deli that we're working on, which is people creating foods from home that can be posted. There's a whole generation of DIY foods that have come out now and came out through lockdown, that you can get your food in a package and you just got to heat it up at home and cook it yourself. So we've got sustainable packaging all coming now. We're looking into different deliveries through drones and big track. That's a little way off yet, but that's the future. And then we've got the property stuff where people can find a restaurant to let, to lease or license. And we've also got staff coming as well. So if you're short of a staff, you can push a button and do a shout out and saying, I'm in X area, I need someone now, who's available. That will be coming as part of it as well. Oh, and also there's 2 other things that we're working on, which is Proper Pub, which is about, as it's self-explanatory, it's to do with bars, and we need to sort out the alcohol and the licensing situation there. And then something, which is a feature that will come on later, which is Proper Stay. So if you are successful in your home and you're cooking food and you've got a spare room, you can get people can stay there. You can have them as employment, or maybe they can just stay the weekend and you have your own chef's table. So if it's all about, again, the home and using accommodation for staff or just for people who want a little weekend break.
And who are you serving at the moment? Is it just around London? And do you ever see yourselves going beyond that?
Yeah, at the moment it's Fitzrovia to Knightsbridge, moving around to Soho, to Smithfield, Spitalfields City. So we're going to nail that.
Yeah.
And then we will be moving out to M25, London, suburb, home counties. And then we have to consider whether we want to franchise the model or continue expanding it.
Absolutely love that. I'll be following this very closely. Before I let you go, though, I'm going to have a bit of fun with you now. It's time for the fun part of the podcast. We've got a Spotify playlist where we always ask the guests to add a song that inspires them or is important to them or just helps them get their head in the zone. So first of all, I'm going to ask you both, is there a song you'd like to add to that list?
Well, I'm going to say there was a track through lockdown called Times Like These, and it was originally by the Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
And I think Radio 1 Live did their own version with an eclectic mix of young, talented people. And it was really moving for me at that time and for now when I hear the song, because, times are very different now for everyone.
That's a great choice. I'll get that added to our Spotify playlist. And so, Jacob, I'm going to ask you a slightly different one here. Now, some of the biggest names in business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or listened to this podcast. So the question I'm going to ask you where we can put this out to the universe is there a person that you would love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why? Because he or she might just be listening to this.
Sure. I'm going to say Jack Dorsey, CEO and founder of Twitter, and now Block, which was previously Square. I think his story is fascinating about how he dropped out and he almost nearly worked at Facebook as well. But he has a very sort of distinct view on blockchain and crypto. And I'd really like to explore with him about, how it's a single, there's no single individual that, owns blockchain or, as an internet technology. And I think I'd love to find out more from him.
Oh, man, what a great choice. Man, you've shot straight for the moon now. I don't know if I've got Jack Dorsey listening, but you never know. Before I let you go, though, for anyone listening wanting to download the app, find out more information, or even contact you guys or your team, what's the best starting point for everything?
Sure. You can contact us at support@propagrub.com, or you can visit the website propagrub.com to download the app.
Brilliant. And I'll add those links to the show notes so people can find it nice and easy. I absolutely love what you're doing here, especially someone that's used those big name apps, and you open them up and, as you said, you get the same 4 or 5 names every time, and you just want something tasty and nice and maybe even homemade or something different. And I love how you're serving that, but also how you bring in the social elements in and even crypto too. Incredibly cool. I got a feeling you're going to be back on the podcast next year with even more to share, but more than anything, just thank you for sharing your story with me today.
Great. Thanks, Neil. Cheers.
As I said at the very beginning of the podcast, I've scrolled through those same apps such as Uber Eats and Deliveroo, and it is the same McDonald's, Burger King, Papa John's, KFC, etc. But we want more than that now. We want more than a dirty burger. We want the kind of food that you see on those Instagram feeds. And not only that, it's rather than just buying from a soulless big corporation, it's nice to actually be able to communicate with the restaurant and the chef and ask little things, whether it be about a pasta sauce or anything. I think it's an absolutely amazing concept. And also love how they've brought in the crypto and the social elements. They've got such a grand vision for where this is heading. And ultimately, it's technology working best when it brings everyone together. I always end that podcast on that theme, and I think today's story is a perfect example of that, and it makes it even better that it's a father and son partnership. But over to you. What are your thoughts about anything we discussed today? Email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram @Neil C. Hughes. Send me a DM, don't just connect. Let me know you listen to the podcast. Let me know any thoughts about today's episode, or if you'd like to come on a future episode too. But that's it for today. I'm feeling quite hungry after today's episode. So thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.